Christine, if you want to just go into the sediment and take any apologies.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. I have Councillor Douglas Reid.
Here.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Here, President, thanks.
Councillor John McFadden.
Here.
Councillor Elaine Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Present.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Here.
Councillor Graham Barton.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Barry Douglas.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Neil Ingram.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Claire Maitland. Here. Councillor Drew Filson.
Here.
Dr David Lewis.
Yeah.
Harriet Johnston.
Here, thanks.
Babs Mowat.
Here.
And Jackie Livingston.
I'm here.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, item 1 is declaration of interest. Don't think there's anything obvious. Barry's hands up. Oh, Barry, right. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Leader. Just to say on item 5, whilst I am involved in the development industry and a chartered town planner and member of the Royal Town Planning Institute, I do feel I am able to take part in item 5, given I've no conflicts of interest with that, but just for the avoidance of doubt and transparency. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Barry. That's noted. Anyone else? No? Okay. Go to item 2E, which is the policy review schedule, and Amanda's taking that.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. The purpose...
Sorry, Amanda. Babs, you've got your hand up. Was that a declaration of interest? Oh, a wrong hand. Sorry. Okay, we'll get that sorted. Sorry, Amanda.
No problem.
That's it.
So the purpose of this report is to recommend to Cabinet proposed changes to employment policies which are detailed in paragraph 2 of the report. Paragraphs 3 through to 5 lay out the background which describes the Council's policy review schedule. The main report is in relation to 3 employment policies that have been reviewed, with the first one starting at paragraph 7 being job evaluation, which was last approved at Cabinet in November 19. And I would note that there is a large number of changes, but there's no significant changes to the policy. In the main, they're set out in 2 categories. One is in relation to terminology, versions of the system, and update in council management structure, etc., which is relevant in sections 1.4, 2.1, 3.2, 19.1, 24.3, 20.6 and section 26. The remaining categories are all updating and clarification in the policy. They don't change the current practice of the policy, but it's from basically learning as we went along, questions that's asked, confusion there might be for employees or managers. So it's just given additional clarification, but no changes to the actual how the policy works. Paragraph 8 is the relocation policy. It was last approved at Cabinet in December 2020. It's been a desktop review of our relocation policy, and we are not suggesting any changes except for job titles to reflect the current management structure. This policy is not one that's used regularly. We last used it in 2018 in the council, but given the current climate for recruitment, we felt that we would recommend that we retain this as another tool in the box basically for attracting. And the third policy starts in paragraph 9, which is our exit interview policy. And again, most of the changes in here are about additional information or administrative changes. Noting that in paragraph 4.5 is update to advise that the Workforce and Future Skills team will make sure that the responses are forwarded to the HR business partners for them to review and to review with the services. 4.6 introduces that there will be a quarterly report that will go to my own management team to reflect on any HR implications or issues that's coming from the returns, and it will also be reported to the CMT for that wider scrutiny. We've removed point 5 as the current reiteration of the policy. It's the managers that undertake the exit interviews, and only if an individual doesn't want to do it, it would be done by an HR business partner. We are reverting back to them being done with HR business partners in the first instance. The implications are detailed in paragraph 12. There's no other implications other than people and culture, which have been mentioned, governance, inequality and Fair Scotland duties, where the proposed changes will ensure the Council continues to meet its legislative requirements and as employer meets to pursue continuous improvement in best value. Paragraph 15 notes that our trade union colleagues have been fully consulted and have agreed to all the changes in the policy. And paragraph 16 notes that an equality impact assessment, which is on the members portal, has been done for the exit interview and job evaluation, but there's not been a further one done for relocation due to the minor changes. The recommendations are in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, I think it's rather straightforward. Can we agree with the recommendations? Okay, thanks. Okay, and now going to the item 3, which is the Learning and Estate Management Plan. And Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. This report presents the Learning and Estate Management Plan and notes the report is a retrospective annual plan that requires submission to the Scottish Government each year. The report before members today is based on academic year 22-23, setting out the strategic aims, key performance data, successes and action areas to improve the learning estate. The preparation and development of the Learning and Estate Management Plan is very much a collaborative approach, and I'd want to take the opportunity to recognise colleagues across education, facilities and property management and economic growth who have all made a significant contribution to the redesign, the development and production of this report. Before I set out the key points in the report, I just note there's an error in one of the recommendations. Recommendation 3 notes the 2005 School Estate Management Plan, which should be the 2015, noting that progress over the past 10 years. The covering paper sets out the key points in the report and notes the Learning and Estate Management Plan as part of the Council's wider asset management framework and informs the priorities of the capital investment programme in relation to the school estate. This year's plan has been reorganised from previous years and brings together the strategic aims and policy context together in the new Section 1. Section 2 sets out the profile of the estate and includes information covering early years outdoor learning and digital learning, all of which are recent developments impacting on the learning estate. Sections 3 and 4 include the core information on condition, suitability and occupancy, which have over the past 15 years driven the investment priorities. We have seen significant improvement and in general the school estate is in a positive position. These sections, however, note that there requires a constant review, assessment and an ongoing investment. It highlights where we will continue to monitor the situation, where we have set priorities within the capital programme and where other actions are being taken to address current issues. This section also notes the challenges of ASN provision across the estate, which sets out a further priority in both short-term challenges as well as recognising the longer-term aspirations. Section 5 is an additional section this year that recognises the report has previously been more of a snapshot 1 year. So this now assesses projections going forward. Again, noting overall issues are being managed effectively, I would look to give members further assurance that extensive work has been undertaken across facilities and property management, education and planning policy to incorporate robust and relevant information in these projections. The long-term trend continues to show an overall decline in the school role, however, but members are fully aware different schools and communities have very different challenges, and we continue to consider implications for over and under occupancy across different locations. Section 6 and 7 reflects the extensive and comprehensive investment across the learning estate as part of the capital investment plan. This includes 245 million of previous investment and notes the further 96 million committed as part of the updated capital plan that follows this report. Implications are set out in paragraphs 23 to 34, and the full report is included with the covering paper and a number of appendices showing the school-by-school condition, suitability, school capacity figures for 22-23 and property management plan assessment information, as well as action areas noted in that appendix. There is also paragraph 5, which is the graphs showing the school role projections over the next 5 years. I would therefore refer members back to the recommendations on page 7. Ask members to continue to support the vision and priorities of the Learning Estate Management Plan, support the joined-up approach in developing future priorities, note the achievements and successes over the past 10 years, and finally agree to submit the Learning Estate Management Plan to the Scottish Government. Thank you, Chair, and Linda and I are both happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. No, it's a very good paper. You know, as you say yourself, I mean, there's a great level of positivity here. You know, and a lot of investment that's taken place over the years. You know, from early years right through to the huge Barony campus. A lot to be proud of what we've achieved over recent years. But again, there's various, as we see here, there's always changes, and we're always required to do review, and particularly as we see big changes in demands for ASM provision, and that'll be some probably we'll discuss in the next paper. As we say, this will inform how we go forward. Colleagues, any comments or questions? Elaine?
Thanks, Chair. I've got a few comments and questions on this paper, if that's okay. Just picking up on your last point, I'm really interested to find out more detail about what's driving the 10% increase in the ASN placements, how that fits with national trends and also other local authorities that's similar to us. But I'm conscious that this is a retrospective paper and we've got the live ASN review that's going to report back in the summer. So I'm happy to wait if that level of detail. I just wanted to register some interest to try and understand what these drivers are and what the changing patterns are. And also, is it ASN with medical, physical needs, or is it behavioural communication needs and anything that's driving that? So I'm not really looking for an answer this morning unless there is a quick summary, but appreciate some follow-ups with that. If I move to page 10, the table on page 10, I see it has planned completion dates, but I think it would have been useful if we had start dates there as well, just to give some people some reassurance, because it's quite a long timetable that's there, so I think that would be useful. Below table 6, there's also a double asterisk that's highlighting that a programme of works will be developed to include initial works during 2024, and obviously we've got the next paper coming up. Perhaps Andrew might want to speak to the detail of that, but I'm obviously interested in when some of that detail round about the Willowbank, ASN, Laneshaw and on Thank SLC. But again, if we want to pass it over to the next paper, I'm happy to do that. And the final question is on the collaboration around the suitability and the condition of our schools. That whole process, I'm interested to know what involvement there is with the head teachers. I get the impression from the paper that there is some input, but do we have a sign-off approval step where head teachers actually agree with the assessment from facilities and property management? So if there's any information I could have on that point. Apologies, that's 3 different areas I've rolled into one there.
No, thanks, Lynn. I would particularly agree with you in table 6. You know, it shows you the completion date, but as we know from the next paper and the appendices, there's quite extensive information there. But some of these projects are starting already, and and some are going at different paces, and I think that needs to be communicated to the folk in these schools to get a bit more detailed information on that. And I'm wondering if we could do that. Yeah, Elaine?
Well, I think that's a really good point, because we all read these papers in depth and look at the appendices, but not everyone has the time or the inclination to do that. So if there's any plans to provide something more personalised or summarised, especially for parent councils and teacher representatives that attend those, so that we're getting that information out in a timely way and improving the communication, I certainly would welcome that. If we've got any ideas along those lines.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah, I think we need to get the comms right in this, and I don't know if we need to put that in a recommendation or we just do it anyway. Richard, can you?
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Cowan. I think they're all very valid and reasonable suggestions. Certainly, in terms of the start date, that's no problem. We can provide that in terms of the information, and in terms of ongoing review and continuous improvement, we'd obviously be looking to where we can engage further and directly and in person with parent councils and obviously between education and facilities management staff, we can ensure that happens in terms of what works are required, making sure that they're involved and engaged in the scope of those works, and obviously the timescales in terms of when that can happen. So very happy to take those on board and feed that into the process moving forward. Leader, equally, if you wish, in terms of that recommendation, equally very happy to support that.
Okay, I think if we add that makes it quite clear. Put that in add that to recommendations to supply the parent councils in individual schools with information on the start and just the phasing of the works that's already contained in both papers. Okay, anyone else? Graham? Oh, sorry, Lyndon, you're on the phone.
Sorry, it was the collaboration with the condition and suitability, the process for that status, what involvement head teachers have with signing off on the agreement of it.
Sure. Andrew?
So the condition and suitability is slightly different. So I suppose that the suitability is sort of informed by the head teacher. So it's more of the usability of the space. So that's actually completed by the head teacher, and then it's kind of cross-referenced from a facilities and management point of view. The condition, I suppose, works the opposite way. So it's more informed by the property officers and the information we've got in terms of the physical condition of the building, because obviously it goes into a lot more detail in terms of the fabric of the building, the walls, the structural components, the heating system, etc. So although there are elements of that feed in from the school and the head teacher in terms of things like the condition of toilets and some of those areas, the main focus of the condition is some of the major components within the building. So that's mainly done through the property team, but there is a reference and obviously informed with the head teacher. The suitability one, as I say, works the opposite way, and that's much more around the school's perception and understanding and their usability of the space.
Thanks, Andrew. I think you also asked about the ASN, just about the general reason for that, Elaine, as well. Are you able to give that, or Linda?
Yeah, certainly, Leader. Thank you, and thanks for your question, Councillor Cowan. Colleagues, as you know, clearly we are still dealing in education and in other services with the impacts of COVID. We have absolutely seen increased levels of dysregulation among young people who've missed key aspects of transition. Transition even in terms of some young people who've not even had an early years experience because of the shutdowns that took place, and that then also applies early years into primary and indeed, as you'll know, colleagues, primary into secondary, and then those impacts that are then had as a rock on there. Answering the question specifically, Councillor Cowan, around about, are we tracking it around about the same rate? Nationally, the national ASN rate is around about the 27-28% mark. So we are slightly above, but again, in the context of the deprivation levels that exist within the council and that indeed have been exacerbated by COVID. The increases we see are mainly communication difficulties, neurodiversity, clearly issues around about that related to spectral issues, and obviously the levels of dysregulation I've already advised about. So it's a kind of combination. We're not seeing a significant increase, obviously, in some of the other matters raised, but the other piece that I think we've discussed before is the really good news in some of this is that a lot of our young people with complex ASN and complex medical needs are surviving longer. So ultimately, we've got some really good parts within this, that actually some of the prognoses for some of the young people in terms of medical advancements are meeting that. We are seeing an increase in that population, but ultimately it's for good reason around about that these young people are being sustained longer with more difficult conditions. So it's almost the sort of perfect storm of different issues appearing, Councillor Cowan, but certainly we're tracking it around about 5 or 6% above the national ASN rate. And just to finalise my point there,
Leader, we will be bringing a fuller ASN review after the holidays. Apologies for the delay in that. That's been due to officer absence. So we're well underway with hoping to bring you that after recess to Cabinet for further discussion.
Thanks, Linda. I've got Graham, Maureen, then Ian. Graham.
Thanks. I'm just going to make a quick comment. I've said it's reassuring to see 48 of our 49 schools in A or B condition, and the only C condition school since the fires has started, it's in a fit refurbishment, and I think that's all down to the past 10 years of investment with this council. So thanks for the paper, Andrew.
Thanks, Graham. Absolutely. And see a bit of progress in St Savines as well when I was out last week. Maureen.
Sorry, thank you very much. Just a couple of points to make and to build on that. Clearly, as we can see in Table 6 and the asterisks with Table 6, and no apologies for choosing to be parochial and be talking about Ward 2 specifically. On Thank Primary School, it indicates that a programme of works will be developed to include initial works during 2024. That would be out with the overall development period, which would expect to be 2027 to 2030. Now, Andrew, it's just to ask for clarification between yourself and Richard in terms of, I would certainly support what Elaine has said in terms of detailed information to the parent councils and to the wider parent body within the affected schools as to what works are actually happening. But the work specifically within 2024, within On Thank, are they going to be wider than that which is required in relation to health and safety issues that clearly are present within the school? So that's my first question. My second question is to Linda in relation to the ESN review and the increase in ASN stats that we are seeing. And I would agree with her, it is about medical advances, and that's something to be celebrated and something to be welcomed. But I do very much hope that the ASN review overall is looking at the wider lifetime of the young person and actually what the provisions are actually going to be in relation to those stats, and in particular the areas that she has highlighted for us when these young people are ready to make the big transition, and that's the one out of school actually into the world that's beyond school. So that would be a really important thing, and I'm looking for some reassurance, as I'm sure many parents will be, that that's something that we are being far-sighted in our thinking about what is actually coming forward in the medium to longer term for these young people. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maureen. No, in terms of your comments, having been out on Thank, support, and I know all the local members are quite supportive, and I think in general we can see the urgency, but I think that's reflected in page 100 in the next paper. In terms of the profile, how it's been profiled there, I don't know if we can have a wee discussion, Andrew, if you want to comment on that. But looking at it further, we can discuss that in the next paper as well. Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, a wee bit more detail in the second paper, and obviously we've recognised some of those initial needs. I think On Thank is probably a good example in the challenge that we had in terms of the bid for the LEAP funding, because there was a number of areas that we'd already previously identified where works were going to be progressed and looked at. And again, I think part of what we've tried to do with these papers, aligning those sort of short-term needs and addressing some of the immediate priorities, including addressing health and safety issues, but not just the health and safety issues, actually looking at where we could utilise the future investment to ensure any investment just now actually meets those future requirements, as well as obviously just the immediate elements. I mean, just as I suppose a specific, then clearly we are looking to extend and improve the external space at the SLC, not just obviously address the health and safety issue of the fence. We are looking to reconfigure and make appropriate the toilets and the changing facilities. But again, we're trying to look at that within the context of what other requirements would be within that area, not just in terms of replacing the toilet. So I think both of those would be the key priorities we would want to push forward with this year. There was also a number of other issues, and if we look at the paper, we have set some of the budget over the next 2 to 3 years. So there was some other priorities in terms of the discussions and feedback from recent visits. So things like realigning the fence at the front of the school to extend the playground. And again, as Linda's highlighted there around some of the children in terms of the SLC, that dysregulated behaviour, the opportunity to get outside are very much the things that the whole school would benefit from. So those are things that we'd maybe look to programme in the maybe next summer and then into the year after, not just the sort of larger investment, which will probably focus on much more around the significant component elements, things like the heating, ventilation, drainage, etc., and obviously the overall kind of toilet provision within the school. Those are probably the bits that we'll see over the next 3 to 4 years, but certainly there will be 1 or 2 areas that we'll be able to progress this year and into next year as well. And again, happy taking of work. We clearly would always work with schools through the head teacher and feedback into parent councils with any projects, and we do set up project boards which will involve the head teacher for all of these projects as we move forward. And obviously, as we've said in these reports, some of the projects are just at that early stage at the moment, and clearly once we start to engage and develop the scope, further work and communication will be done through those project boards. Hopefully that explains it a wee bit more in general as well.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm trying not to stray into the next paper, and I think that's all members. We've all been visiting some of the school campuses recently, and we've all got concerns here and there, maybe, and and rightly so. I think we need to communicate that with the parent and school bodies there. But maybe you can maybe develop that in the next paper. And
Linda.
Linda, I'll bring in just a second, Maureen. Linda.
No, thanks, Chair. I think Councillor Mackay was just alluding to the fact of the question that she'd requested in respect of the sort of wider life of the young people with complex needs, and I'm absolutely delighted to report, Councillor Mackay, that's actually a piece of work that's actually underway in terms of initial scoping and discussion. What we're very, very acutely aware of is that for some young people, the world of work will be an opportunity for them, and clearly we have such fantastic facilities around about SL 3366, etc. And whilst recognising that we might need something a lot more bespoke, we've actually been in discussion directly with Willowbank in terms of the head teacher and the chair of Friends of Willowbank to look at a possibility of some sort of SL type model to assist with those transitions for the young people for whom this would be appropriate. It would be incredibly irresponsible of me to sit here in Cabinet and say that the post-school life is not part of education, because actually as we're duty bound to help prepare them for that next part. And clearly as we begin to shape these thoughts further, I'll be looking to my colleagues over in the Health and Social Care Partnership for their input as to how we might give these young people who are surviving a lot longer, again in that really good prognosis, some efforts to assist them, outside of our normal routes like Project Search, etc., to actually be able to live really meaningful lives in an environment that's suitable for them. So that work's about 3 months in, Councillor Mackay. I suspect we'll be able to do an initial overview of that in the ASN paper. And clearly members are aware we've also been running a trial period for young people in the Park senior phase, taking up some of the free space at St Joseph's as we speak, and we will also be able to report back to you shortly as to potential next steps that we would like to take in that particular domain. So short answer, absolutely yes, Councillor Mackay. I actually thank you very much for asking that particular question, given that it's something that we've got in scope.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, Maureen, You okay with that?
Thank you. No, I'm very pleased with Linda's answer, and that's very good to know. In relation to it, sort of feeds in a little bit, I suppose, to Andrew's answer to us, and that is, whilst I'm genuinely very pleased, very grateful. I know how the effort that has been put in from officers and from all ward members within Ward 2 to this area. We are acutely aware that the allocation that we have got here is £5 million. I understand why it's £5 million, but that is in huge contrast to what we were anticipating having had the LEAP bid, which was very successfully prepared by officers, and I would want to underline my support for the officers' work on that bid. But we were anticipating that what we would actually see is that we would actually be seeing a new facility. That's never going to be, whatever we do, it's never going to be the same as what we had hoped and anticipated that we would have. So that will always be a source of regret.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the case, but in terms of, but we have a significant investment going into the area, and as a council, we continue to strive to look at ways of getting additional income where we can, and we'll continue to press that. But in the meantime, some of the matters that as we saw during the visit need urgent attention, and I think that's where we need to absolutely focus on in the immediate term. But we can't disagree with the wider issue there. Ian.
Thanks, Dougie. And I think you were right at the start of this discussion to focus on the condition overview in table 46, 47. I think it significantly shows how we've come on in his administration. I remember well going out with Graham Short, the then head education, in 2007 when I took over the role as education spokesperson and visiting the Patna St Saviour's primary schools down the Doon Valley. Patna Primary School had been a World War II building constructed with single glazed glass panels with steel panels at the bottom, to which the central heating radiators had been bolted onto. So effectively we were heating the playground down there. And even worse, at St Saviour's, it was getting powered by a diesel generator in the playground. So the table on 46, 47 shows huge progress from where we were back in 2007, and I absolutely welcome that journey we've been on since then to improve our school estate.
No, absolutely, and we continue to make progress, and that's what we're all about. Okay. Oh, was that Maureen? Maureen.
Thank you very much. And Ian, you and I, veterans of actually sort of, doing that actually at that particular time. And I certainly would never detract from the significant investment that has been made. What I want to absolutely focus us on, and I think this paper with the stats involved in the paper, when we look at it in detail and we look at what the capacity and what the roles are, is I think we need to get even more agile and even smarter in terms of, it's not just about investing, it's about targeting actually where we are investing. And again, no apologies when I say, when we look at what the role is in relation to schools in Northwest Kilmarnock, with particular reference to Onthank and the growing numbers within Hillhead, we really need to be focusing on that. It's not about just spending money across the areas. It's now about looking at, so where is the demand? And I know that I'm in a situation within Onthank where it's not just the current pupils' parents who are also educated within Onthank, but it is the grandparents of some of the current children who are actually being educated within Onthank Primary. So that one has to be one that absolutely focuses the minds of all of us going forward. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks. And absolutely, in terms of Hill Head, made great strides there. I remember in terms of, the school catchment area, there was so many placing requests out with the area to the schools round about, and we've reversed that decline in Hill Head, and that's down to really good investment and good work by the officers. But yeah, absolutely agree. We need to be agile and quick on our feet, and need to look at other things and other issues, and how we not only just place investment, but how we manage the resources as well. But I think that'll be part of the next paper that's coming. We'll have a discussion about that as well, hopefully. Okay, but in terms of this paper, I think we've had a good discussion on it, unless there's anything else. Could we agree the recommendations with that addition one I just suggested about informing the parents of progress and a bit more detail, not just the parents, the school bodies as well. And if we do that to the schools individually, if we can do that with that addition, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, and we go on to the next paper, which is paper 48, Building a Future East Ayrshire Capital Investment Programme Review Update, and Andrew again.
Thank you again, Chair. This report sets out an updated position on the capital investment plan following a further review of the projects noted in the current plan. As members are aware, the capital programme is reported annually with the revenue budget and the Treasury management strategy to Council each February. This recognises the connectivity of each of these reports and is part of the Council's medium-term financial strategy. Although the report in February set out a reviewed capital programme and reduced the overall project costs, the implications of rising market costs, increased borrowing and inflation pressures and changes to the revenue budget, the programme still exceeded the Council's borrowing limits. This report retains the overall structure and focus of the programme, highlighting green, amber and yellow projects. It sets out an additional focus on critical projects and recognises the key risk areas around external funding, strategic priorities, project needs and scope, as well as reflecting on a range of inputs, including various site visits to inform decisions. The table after paragraph 12 visually sets out the programme around 4 strategic themes: the learning estate, wellbeing, leisure and culture, economic growth and infrastructure as the key themes of the general services capital investment. It also builds on the green, amber and yellow projects to provide further clarity around green projects, noting they are progressing with current delivery anticipated between 2024 and 2026. The additional critical stage projects have been identified where key decisions are required during 2024 to ensure progress and focus, with delivery anticipated between 26 and 2030. The capital programme remains significant over the next 5 years across the general services and housing. And as well as reviewing the needs of each project, the review has also considered priorities, and these are reflected in the timing of projects across the programme. From paragraph 15, further detail is presented on project by project basis around the above categories. I don't intend to cover every project, but will highlight important aspects aligned to the recommendations of the report. Within the learning estate, good progress continues to be made with the Dunlop Early Childhood Centre and St Sophia's on site, and design development progressing with the realigned scope at Student Academy and Comores Primary School. Critical stage projects within the learning estate include the Doon campus and ESN provision. As noted, due to the significance of the recommendation on the Doon, a supplementary report is included, and I will come onto that report at the end of this presentation. However, I will continue with the main report first. From paragraph 29, as members are aware, ASN provision continues to struggle with demand, and although previous years have provided investment to meet growing demand, more complex needs, as well as the aim of greater integration and mainstreaming around supported learning centres, these are all driving additional pressures. This is both to address short-term needs as well as building on a future ASN strategy. Recognising this is a complex area and interlinks a number of aspects, more detailed work is being progressed, with a further report being brought back to members in the autumn. It is, It is, however, important to address immediate improvements at Willowbank and on-Thank SLC, with required works recently being developed for progressing over the summer. The future programme within the Learning Estate, recognising a range of challenges linked to the Learning Estate Management Plan, and will require more detailed assessment and priority of investment in conjunction with the service. This will require a dynamic review as project scope is developed. Further updates will be presented to Cabinet over future years. Recognising a number of projects support wellbeing, leisure and culture, there's linked to a number of cross-cutting service reviews. Consideration has been made to ensure we achieve progress in a number of investment areas while ensuring appropriate time is taken to maintain that alignment with review outcomes. Therefore, progressing projects including the Galston Library and Office, Merlin Park development and an additional ask for investment in telecare to meet the growing demand, it is recognised these projects align with future direction and support early intervention agendas. It is also noted that ongoing investment in housing aligns to the strategic plans agreed annually in the November Cabinet. The next critical stage project is Cultural Kilmarnock and the investment at the Palace Theatre Complex. As is noted in the project, the project continues to be challenged in terms of external funding, noting the reduction in the overall project costs due to the loss of HLF funding. The challenging programme set by the Department of Levelling Up. The Department of Levelling Up, UK Government have also appointed Deloitte to provide project support. And although discussions have been positive, a final outcome of the review is still to be concluded. Key to maximising the external funding is progressing at pace. Therefore, fabric improvement works are being taken forward through a direct contract award. This will ensure the external fabric works begin as soon as possible, utilising Council's funding, and that will hopefully stimulate that further investment and commitment from the UK Government in terms of the wider investment for the project. The other critical stage project is the Galleon project, and as noted, a stage 1 feasibility report was submitted in October 23 and the design team has been stood down until options are considered. Recognising the challenging budget position and the feasibility work offering a range of phased options, it is proposed to re-engage the design team to establish a more detailed phase 2 scope that delivers on the priorities but within the identified budget of £13.5 million. Although both these projects will have a strategic importance in relation to the wider leisure services review, progressing with these key areas will only support the longer-term viability and commercial business case for leisure services in the future. A number of town centre sites remain within the programme across wellbeing, leisure and culture and economic growth, with buildings currently being marketed at present. Some interest has been received, and following further assessment of proposals, we'll be in a position to share further information with members in future. Under economic growth, the Ayrshire Growth Deal projects offer a major investment to support business and future jobs across the area. The Ayrshire Manufacturing Investment Corridor and the Ayrshire Engineering Park at Moorfield are progressing well, and as we move through the required change processes and business case stages with the UK and Scottish governments. Detailed designs are being progressed, with infrastructure works expected to start in early 2025. The core project is noted as a critical stage project, following agreement at Cabinet in October to reframe the approach and establish a new focus through the programme board structure and the development of new work streams. This has further clarified a range of areas that have been developed and are set out in paragraph 77. Members were invited recently to presentations, and again, as business case stages are developed and project scopes are agreed, further reports will be presented to members. There is no doubt the Council has been successful in working with partners and attracting significant investment, and in particular the Ayrshire Growth Deal projects committing £64 million over the coming years. A range of other external investment has also been attracted to East Ayrshire, as noted in paragraph 79, and building on strong community-led regeneration principles, future investment priorities will continue to be supported. The final theme of the report includes our wider infrastructure investment. Firstly, I would note the positive news that SPT have agreed to fund the remainder of the project at the bus station, and this is expected to be completed over the next month. We've also seen progress in the new car park investment, with the car park on London Road at Centre Stage now open. The Infinity Loop remains a critical project for infrastructure, and members who attended the briefing session, I hope, will appreciate the positive impact the investment will bring to the area. However, it is recognised that although we have commitment from Sustrans to fund the design stage to stage 4, the final agreement for the construction investment will require submission and agreement in early 2025. Therefore, further information will be presented to Cabinet before the end of 2024. The report also notes the future infrastructure and asset investment on roads, property management plans and fleet all continue to reflect the current and future service needs, as well as require ongoing challenge to ensure priorities are delivered on. Finally, the report sets out the wider implications and specifically the financial implications. As outlined earlier, the proposals in this report, if agreed, in total will reduce the capital commitment by £30 million. While that is a substantial reduction, finance colleagues will require to further review the implications in terms of the wider Treasury management strategy and the borrowing costs. What I'll look to do before we move the recommendations, as I said earlier, I would refer members to the report A1 on Doon Campus. The Doon Campus project, as noted in the Capital Programme report, has been identified as a critical project, and the appended report provides further background due to the significance within the overall programme. As members are aware, it has been reported regularly the Doon Campus project as part of the Learning Estate Investment Programme and set an ambitious approach around placemaking, net zero aspirations and the integration of wellbeing, leisure, education and community needs. The project has had many challenges through COVID, market pressures, design challenges, new planning policy, partner funding, and also extensive community engagement. The report sets these out in more detail, but ultimately this has resulted in the project still having a significant cost risk and the project significantly over the original agreed cost metrics. It was agreed in the Capital Report presented to members in February. The project has been subject to further detailed review, and the report sets out the considerations of that review. This is reflected on the alignment to the strategic priorities, considered the assessment and the priority within the Learning Estate Management Plan, and reflected on the local operational aspects beyond just education incorporated that would be incorporated into the proposed new facility. Therefore, to consider how we move forward, 4 options have been considered. A do-nothing option has been ruled out due to the existing fabric and the needs aligned to the Learning Estate Management Plan and local community. Consideration was given to options under the Schools Consultation Act. However, again, this was ruled out due to the legal status of the schools and the additional protection that brings. A third option to review the current design and reduce scope. Again, this has been ruled out due to the stage of design, the ability to value engineer further, the project being very limited, and the overall reduction, again, likely to only offer around about a £7 million reduction in the overall cost. Final consideration has then been to look at options in relation to a refurbishment. Again, further options and consideration have been provided in relation to the extent and complexity of the refurbishment, and it is recommended that members agree to set an affordability cap of £25 million aligned to the mid-level refurbishment. Reflecting and comparing the current condition, the extent of reconfiguration needed and the level of intervention on the fabric and key components, the mid option would provide best value to address the requirements of the facilities. Further detailed assessment, engagement and review of priorities will obviously need to take place, and if members agree to the proposals, on that basis we will work to that £25 million affordability cap, working with the school and the local community to develop the detailed scope. As noted in paragraph 62 to 65, there is no doubt this project has been impacted by the worst of COVID, cost of living and borrowing cost pressures, with additional complexities that have taken the project to a point beyond affordability. However, it is clear the needs of the community and the priority to invest in the facilities in Mellington remain an important area of our learning estate investment priorities. Therefore, as set out in the report, a more focused and elemental approach with a staged refurbishment is recommended to allow the project to continue and for the required improvements to be provided to the school community. As noted in the report, we continue to have a dialogue with the Scottish Government, and early indications are a reduced scope project would still align with the aspirations of the Learning Estate Improvement Programme. And as the scope and design is developed, we would hope this would retain a portion of the LEAP revenue funding. So, members, thank you for your patience, and I would just suggest that consideration of the recommendations in relation to Doon are considered and then followed by the wider recommendations within the capital report. And again, happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andrew. I think what we've got in front is a very ambitious capital programme, despite pressures out with our control in terms of other influences I've had to see us reduce our ambition, but still very much an ambitious programme. We know the issues with contract inflation, and we're still suffering the consequences of Brexit and other factors in the economy, and less funding. But just to kind of maybe, we could go all over the place in this report, and it's a big report for us. I'm suggesting that maybe we go, and there's 4 areas that Andrew's identified: the learning estate, wellbeing, and they're on, if you look at page 66, they're on a column, 4 columns there: learning estate, wellbeing and leisure, economic growth and infrastructure. If we maybe take them one at a time to save us darting about from bit to bit, and we'll maybe, first of all, maybe bring in the learning estate questions in that, particularly, I know Green Campus and other issues will be there for us.
Chair, sorry, through you, I think the proposal, and it's obviously up to Cabinet, but the proposal was that given that the recommendation specifically around Doon is intrinsic to the rest of it, because it's about making the budget balance, then the suggestion was that if members want to consider Doon and maybe keep focused on Doon and take questions and any clarifications around Doon, and then invite the decision on the recommendation on Doon, and then apply the approach you've suggested, and then have questions, discussion, debate about the other recommendations, because it's the keystone to the rest. And if Cabinet should not decide to accept the Doon proposal, some of the others might need to be revisited anyway in terms of the overall financial position. So the specific proposal for this one, in order to try and help in terms of the logic, would be for members to questions, clarification, reach a position on Doon, and then apply the same approach to the other elements as you've suggested, or building on any decision taken in relation to Doon, is to allow focus. It's a big decision in Doon, but there's a lot of other big issues in there, and it's just the order of things. So the suggestion is Doon first, and then, as you said, breaking down the other areas thereafter, but invite the decision in Doon first. It's up to yourselves, but it's just to try and support a logical.
No, it's absolutely no. I mean, Doon's a key thing in the learning estate, and I think Doon is, I agree, in terms of it's the biggest decision in front of us today. So I'll take questions on the Doon estate first, and Drew.
Thanks, Chair. I don't think we could have picked a worse time to actually build a new school. And at last we'll maybe get a wee bit of certainty here, because it's been 3 years non-stop, endless meetings, Zoom calls, and the community's just exhausted, and you can imagine just how rife the rumours are out there. So to get a wee bit of certainty, maybe in this paper, which I do support, it'll be good going forward, but I'll still look to the community as if we're getting that 41 million. Was 36 to start with, then we get the 5 million uplift that Andrew says there. That was 41 million. But now getting 25, it'll still look as if we're not getting what we should have got in the first place, basically. But when you strip out the likes of the 4 million for likes of the NHS and the police, taking you down to back to 37, and then all the bells and whistles of likes of the kind of passive house, and all the good things that we're trying to do in the new campus, that'll take you much closer to that 25 million kind of pot that we've identified just now. But also get back to the 2 new schools that we built there. It was referred to earlier on there, the Patna Primary School and the Bellsbank. 2 great facilities, both coming in at £10 million each, both full to capacity now and doing really well. So I think this 25 million get into the Doon Valley to accommodate the 2 schools going forward as well will make a big difference. And the fact that we're bringing it in-house as well to our own architects, it gives us more control of doing what we should be doing, building a school that's fit for purpose, and a first-class facility, to build that attainment level up and keep teachers coming to Doon Academy, and stopping the kids actually wanting to go to South Ayrshire, to bigger, more fancier schools. it'll keep them in the community itself. I mean, there was I mentioned there that the school roll would fall to 150. That's not the case. Martin, the new stand-in headmaster, he's looked at the figures. He thinks it should maybe stand between 240, 225. I don't know, Andrew, you have the figures there, I think. So I think we've got to, I would be proposing that we put this 25 million to best use and let's crack on and get it done, because the community's waited long enough for this. Thanks very much, Chair.
No, I'd agree 100%, and you missed it, Bill's back, Drew. Investment there and that for. Which I know is very close to your heart, and that's all part of the investment in that community. And I think this just gives a bit of certainty, as you say, and I think I certainly would be supporting you on that. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. I would agree with all the comments from Councillor Finlayson. Doon Valley has been impacted, as it's set out in the paper, by external pressures out with the control of the council. So we are where we are, and we could sit here, we could wring our hands, put our heads down, but 25 million is still a significant investment into one school. So let's get people back round the table. And let's get focused on that. And I do take Drew's points. There's been extensive consultation with that community, but we need to pick up that communication and make sure everybody who's been involved so far is kept informed and engaged, and they're still round that table and they know what the objectives are and what our aspirations are for that community. Because 25 million, if that's where we were starting out a couple of years ago, saying we were putting 25 million into that school, that would be a massive investment. So I think we need to be more looking at the art of possibility rather than looking back and say, woe is us, where we've got to. Let's see what we can do down in that community.
No, absolutely. We just need to crack on with it and just give that bit of certainty and that bit of hope in that part of the world, and continue to investigate investment that we've had down the years in the Doon Valley. Anybody else? Maureen?
Thank you very much. I'm really just asking a question, please. It's just doing a little bit of fact checking here. Again, I think Councillor Finlayson said that said that Patna primary school was absolutely full. The figures I think that we've got, when I refer back to the last paper, is that Patna primary school is under the low occupancy. Has that changed, or is that something that, it just quite simply isn't correct? I'm seeing that it was registered at 52% of occupancy, and that was a slight improvement of 2%, moving from 50% to the occupancy level. Could we just absolutely make sure that when we are actually talking, that we are absolutely accurate in terms of what we are reporting? Thank you. If I could ask for clarification on that, that would be helpful.
Councillor Mackay, thank you. And I'll revert back to Councillor Filson's question in regard to the discrepancy between the two figures. The one in the previous report that was mentioned directly by Councillor Filson of 151 and the new figure. This is again just talking about Doon Academy per se. Now, as Councillor Filson adapted in the report to 234, when we went back, there'd been some issues around coding using UPRN, which is the unique pupil reference number. So we were able to get ahead of that straight away. So to pick up Councillor Filson's point on the issue around the school rolls, we went back and fixed that in the official number. Again, recognising that Doon is always a difficult school to forecast, given migration of some young people over into schools in the south, given the geography there. Again, won't be an exact science, but 234 was the adapted figure. Coming back to you, Councillor Mackay, on the Patna occupancy, I'll just want a moment just to check that on the length. I think Andrew's got it for me here. So I'll ask Andrew just to feed in on that occupancy level.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Jude, I mean, obviously with your reference to the Learning and Estate Management Plan, the Appendix 5 probably is the important bit where we're projecting the school roles as well. So as was noted, Bellsbank, for the Doon Education Group, Bellsbank is sitting in the 90%. Partner at the moment is round about that kind of 50% mark. But obviously we're seeing that those projections looking to increase over the next few years. But again, still would be reaching a figure of about 60%.
Drew.
Just correct myself there. I was really meaning the Bellsbank one. It's sitting at 90%, which I'd got the figures just recently.
Thanks for it. Okay, that's helpful. Okay, anybody else on the Doon Valley campus? Okay, no, I think this offers real hope for that the community, and we can crack on with getting that investment just right into the school for both Doon Academy and Dalmelton Primary, and we'll see that work to start over the summer in consultation. Andrew, just on that, just for clarification.
Yeah, it's further obviously detailed work in terms of survey information is being collated. We will obviously look to develop the designs and the scope in conjunction with the school, and as has been mentioned, the existing stakeholder groups, just to kind of review the requirements and take that forward. I think obviously over the next sort of maybe 3 to 4 months we would look to do that, and then maybe set a programme in terms of the phases, with hopefully some work starting some point next year.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. That's really helpful. So just to confirm, I'll be in terms of recommendation for in line with what David was saying, I would be, I think Drew's proposing that we agree that recommendation. I would be happy to second that. Would there anyone be otherwise minded? No. Okay, just going with the rest of the call, the paper. So in terms of the learning estate, is there any other points, Celine?
Thank you, Chair, and I'm going to try and not repeat some of the points that were made in the previous paper, but I want to go back to the On Thank SLC. It's page 71 in the report, and it's point 35. And I know it makes reference to that work, which will be addressed in the short term. And during Andrew's introduction, he did mention that the work would be carried over the summer. So I would be proposing to supplement recommendation number 5, where it talks about the reprofiling for these projects. So I'd be looking for a bit more detail there rather than what was in the paper. So I'd be asking for the supplement of recommendation 5 to read, prioritise works to address the current issues around suitability of the Anthank SLC external space and internal accommodation, specifically the toilet and changing areas, in a package of works to be delivered over this summer and to be completed before the start of the 24-25 session, if that's possible.
Suppose that, yeah. Are other members happy with that, Andrew? Sorry, Andrew.
So, the detail that obviously I mentioned earlier, those would be the 2 areas we'd look to develop. I think clearly the external space, I think it's something that we will be able to manage. Definitely prior to the school going back. I think we obviously are still working through the detail, I think, and obviously what I was looking at in terms of and what I said earlier around the toilet and the changing facilities is obviously we are looking not just to fix and repair what the current issue is, but obviously ensure it meets future requirements as well. Therefore, obviously, it will need some additional building standards requirements, obviously lead-in times, which obviously we'll look and endeavour everything to do. But I think we guarantee we'll definitely improve the facilities, but I would anticipate that there would still be further work that we would look to kind of progress with beyond just the holiday period. And again, I think building on some of the other issues within the wider accommodation would be the bits that we would look to take forward over this summer through the school term and into next summer as well. But absolutely looking to focus on those two key issues you've highlighted, to have appropriate facilities available for the school going back in August.
I'd just like to put myself forward to second that.
Okay. I think Maureen. Oh, you're muted, Maureen.
Great, apologies. I think it needs to be wider than that. Of course, I welcome actually the specific detail, but given that we have got sums of money being talked about here, what I would also like to see a modification to that proposal for the change to recommendation 5 is that we report back on what that spend has actually been. Because if we have a total of 5 million, once that spend has been made on the areas that Councillor Cowan has identified, then that will no longer be available for any wider spend, is my understanding of what we have in the paper. So I think we have to have a value of those works coming forward for us.
David, sorry.
Councillor Mackay's quite right. There's a 5 million budget allocated. The intention is to bring forward an element of the works and therefore utilise an element of the budget. So the question will be, what was the cost of the first phase and what is left? That can be reported to Cabinet, probably even in East Ayrshire Performs, because it's a simple factual outturn. Colleagues just need to actually finalise what the works will be, what the packaging will be, and put a cost to that, and it can be reported back to Cabinet at the first opportunity. Obviously, it'll be sooner rather than later because the work's to be implemented and awarded and carried out over the summer. So I would think that come Cabinet by June, we'll have the breakdown of that in terms of what the first phase is likely to cost within the overall 5 million budget. And if members are happy, we can either bring a bespoke report, but a very short one, or we can include that information in East Ayrshire Performs.
Thanks, Elaine.
There's also reference in the paper to the education contingency budget, so I would be comfortable getting that clarity as a regular update in East Ayrshire Performs and seeing how that profile goes. That makes perfect sense as outlined by Mr Mitchell. The idea earlier that was muted about the personalised plans as well to keep up to date with what's happening. If that's going to happen, then I would be satisfied and I would be happy to withdraw my amendment if that's going to be the case. I'm reassured with what I've heard this morning.
Okay, I mean, we can include that the two amendments, the two suggestions together if you're happy, because I mean we do some of that as a matter of course, but just I think it's an important emphasis point that we're making here, David.
I think what we have is a single amendment in two parts, and the two parts are compatible. There's Councillor Cowan's suggestion that there's a bit more detail than the wording in the report, and we've got that. And then there's Councillor Mackay's suggestion that when the report back, we include the cost, the allocation of the cost between the first phase and what will be left in the 5 million allocation for the later phases. And I think the two aren't inconsistent and they're compatible, so we can implement both if Cabinet's happy to accept both.
I'm happy. There's a hand up, but I don't know whose it is. Maureen.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to go forward with what David has proposed, and that is ensuring that we have both those reporting back. My emphasis on this is because clearly the capital programme is so tight that I do think we need to be underlining any spend against what we are proposing here. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Okay. Anything else in the learning estate? Okay. Go down to the wellbeing, leisure and culture aspects. Barry.
Thank you, Dougie. Just a quick point. I suppose this comes into this in relation to Merlin Park. So page 71, paragraph 39, just looking for some assurances that that is indeed on track, because any delays here would have an impact, going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Jim, you want in on that as well?
Yeah, and it's just to follow up on what Barry's actually asking for. I think, Andrew, I've had discussions where you've run about keeping the local ward members informed as this progresses and where it currently is, and having meetings set up with them, irrespective of whether something is happening or not happening. At least it lets them go back into the communities and tell them what's happening with Mellon Park.
Thanks. And Andrew? On that?
I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, I spoke to a number of councillors around just, and again, just maybe more that general point about ensuring specific local projects are informed in terms of both the groups that are actually involved in the scope of these projects, but obviously we'll look to provide some further information. Clearly, we do provide updates in East Ayrshire Performs on all of the projects, but I think happy to kind of provide some more detailed updates on specific projects. I was maybe just going to pass over to Simon just to give an update just in terms of where we are with the project in terms of Mellon Park.
Simon?
Yeah, thanks through you, Chair. Not a brief update. We're at the early stages of feasibility in terms of the designs for the new synthetic pitch, and the programme at the moment still targets completion in the spring of next year, March of next year. So we will endeavour to keep to that programme as we develop through the detailed stage. And I'll keep members advised, and obviously that'll be reported through East Ayrshire Performs as well.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Just can maybe mention in terms of the cultural Kilmarnock as well. You know, that's disappointing to hear some of the Heritage Lottery funding and the UK government's position on this. But in terms of, you know, if we need to lobby harder and firmer on this, certainly would be absolutely, because it's really important to the development of Kilmarnock Town Centre, the wider strategy of developing the regeneration. What's the latest on that, Andrew?
So, I mean, the reports, I suppose the content of the report, just in terms of the way the reports and the timing of when it's presented. We have had some further discussions with Deloitte over the last kind of week or so. Again, those have been very positive, both in terms of their understanding of our project and what we've already done, but also in terms of obviously suggestions and support that they're giving us, aligning with what the best option is to kind of take this project forward. Clearly, the UK government's timeline to deliver this project is really what's putting pressure on the programme and being able to deliver that. We have looked to appoint a contractor, and again, we anticipate after Cabinet we'll be able to kind of formalise that arrangement, and that will start to progress the work in terms of the maintenance. I think, as I said, the discussions with Deloitte and DLUC have been positive, but obviously at this point I would just be kind of hesitant not to actually commit that they're in agreement in terms of reviewing the programme or making those adjustments. But I think we are still fairly confident in terms of those discussions that we will get that full £20 million commitment, and we'll be able to deliver the project. We have been looking at value engineering, obviously, to bring and reduce the costs aligned with the new budget, and those again have been progressing well in terms of taking that forward, but clearly we'd be keen to bring further information back to members as soon as we can.
Thanks, Andrew. I think it would be important to bring that back to members, but maybe also the Kilmarnock Strategy Group as well, you know, because, you know, if we can get cross-working lobbying this to make sure we land this as much as we can in this project and deliver as much as we can, I think the more hands on this we can get, the better, because I know there's a broad welcome for this project. Elaine, is it on this one?
It is, yeah. If can I queue jump, because I see Ian has his hand up. I was just on the buildings, you know, the White Tile building, Civic North and South, that's been deemed surplus to requirements. I know they're actively being marketed at the moment, so I'm just wondering, have we got a time frame for at what point we would, you know, have tested the market and what we would review and what the next steps would be? Just even an indication of the time frame.
So slightly different situation. So we've marketed, I suppose, 3 groups. So we've got the White Tile building, the Dunlop Street site, and also the civic buildings. We have had interest in terms of the White Tile building, and obviously we're assessing that interest at the moment, and we'll obviously come back to members. At the moment, there hasn't been any interest in the civic buildings, and again, in terms of Dunlop Street, there has been initial interest, which again we're looking to explore. Clearly, the Dunlop Street one, obviously the proposals that were agreed previously with Cabinet was around the demolition, and obviously us having to market that probably at least for 6 months. But obviously, if we've got interest, we would want to explore that option prior to obviously coming back to Cabinet. So that's kind of the current state of play, and obviously they've all been marketed now for basically a couple of months.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I mean, in terms of the civics north and south, there's been a suggestion to look at maybe breaking down into marketable chunks. The whole project's maybe too big, and is that something we're going to possibly review elsewhere or here?
I think obviously previously in terms of the capital programme investment and the property management plan, we have obviously said that for all of the options that we would look to market it, see what interest we'll get, see what market feedback we get, and then we would need to come back to members just in terms of what the next stage would be if there isn't any single interest, I suppose, in any of these properties.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Ian, sorry I left you out there, Ian.
Quite all right, Douglas. I'd like to talk about the galleon, please, page 74, 75, paragraph 60 to 63. Obviously, in my role as chair of the Kilmarnock Trust, I look forward to the earliest possible re-establishment of the external design team. I think today's commitment to the agreed funding allows work to commence in the hopefully not too distant future. I'm particularly keen to see an early start to work on the roof. This will allow the installation of the solar panels, which will greatly reduce the building's energy costs. It has always been the preference of the galleon that the refurbishment work be staggered to allow the centre to remain open. I think this is particularly important given that the membership is now approaching nearly 2,900, up from the 1,500 post-COVID. This is an all-time high, even before COVID, and it's very much to be welcomed. I look forward to the outcome of the design work, the design team's work, which will look at the 3 options that are mentioned. We looked at just at the turn of the year, and further papers on how work on which is the preferred option will be progressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, Maureen.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Andrew, you have sparked my interest. Dunlop Street has some interest in it. Can you give us some more, please, information on that?
I'd have to come back to you out with Cabinet. Obviously, at the moment we have interest, which is to look to retain the building, obviously, and as obviously as I said, as part of the planning requirements in terms of Historic Scotland. If we were to look at demolition, obviously this was the step we had to take first, was to see if there was any interest. At the moment, we're engaging with the party in terms of providing further survey information just to assess whether when they understand fully the funding implications and the cost implications, and obviously whether they're able to kind of help inform their proposals. We obviously have had formally those proposals, as we're still in discussion at the moment. That's probably as much as I'm able to say at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. And I mean, if there are developments, we'll let members know, just because it's hopefully some exciting news if that's the case, some positive news. Okay, is that everything? That's wellbeing and leisure. I'm on to economic growth, which was Dunlop Street. Somebody getting there. Anything in there? Anything else? No. Infrastructure. Glad to see at last we're getting the funding for the bus station, and that concluded. That's been a long project, but welcome nonetheless. Just in terms of maybe could I ask you, Andrew, the multi-storey project, there's on the table there, we're saying demolition February 25, and on page paragraph 86, we're seeing works on site in June 24 and completion by February 25. I think in terms of what the retailers and the businesses round about the multi-store are looking for some kind of certainty. And I know there have been various plans and suggestions along active travel, as you say in the report. I think the sooner we're able to give some definitive would be better. But if you just clarify the dates and just can you give us a kind of an indication of when we'll have some kind of definite plans. I know you're working with that strategic group and others on this, but it's just when will members likely to hear some, and businesses hear some definite plans.
Thanks, Chair. We did put a briefing note out at the end of last month. We do have an appointed contractor or preferred contractor. There are a number of statutory consents that obviously we need to get. One of those being an ecological survey, and particularly the bat survey. Those were due to be done obviously during May. They've obviously initially been started. We're still waiting for further investigations. That ultimately was always the risk, which was noted in previous briefing notes, that if we do identify roosting bats on the building, then that obviously does delay further the start. We have agreed with the contractor obviously to hold their price to be able to deliver on it. But obviously until we get those final checks and sign-offs, then we're not able to start the demolition phase. I think that potentially does add a couple of months onto the programme. We have had sort of significant discussions with the contractor. They do have a contractual timeline, which would have meant that June to February start time. They are proposing an accelerated programme. However, at this stage, we're not able to, that would not be part of the contractual arrangement, so we couldn't hold that to them. But obviously, once we've got that initial start on site, then we'll be able to kind of provide further details in terms of completion. But I would hope that we will be able to shorten that construction period and hopefully bring back some of that lost time in terms of the surveys that are currently being undertaken.
Thanks, Andrew. I think we've really got to pull out all the stops here, because there's a number of businesses that are still surviving in the Foregate area and doing their best to, while there's all this uncertainty about. And I think, we don't want to lose any more businesses. And I think it's really important that we get plans going ahead and getting the demolition completed and getting some certainty in there, Andrew. I think we need that 100%. I'm surprised at the bat survey. I'm surprised that the seagull or the gulls in there allowed them to go anywhere near it, but that's another story. I've never done any reports of bats down there, but that's another. But I think we need to do what we can to press this forward, because it's really, really important to local traders. Barry.
Thank you, Dougie. And on the same vein of the multi-story, I'm a bit like yourself, knowing how bats operate and knowing how seagulls operate. I am very surprised there would be bats there, because the seagulls would eat them, given half a chance. Okay, in relation to this, Andrew, I would hope that we can do everything we can to try and expedite matters here. But I think really, really important is that we are engaging with the traders, and I know they certainly have met with Babs recently, and in fact in the chamber. But I think they do need some more definitive updates. What I would also ask, and whilst this might not be entirely pertinent for this meeting, is that we maybe look through comms at supporting some promotional local businesses in and around the Foregate during the demolition, because that will be vital for them. As the leader says, we know that some of the businesses are struggling. They're small, local, independent businesses, and we must do all we can to try and support them during that demolition phase. But important that we're giving them timescales and updating them, because if things are slipping, it's probably more vital they know, they'll accept that a lot of these things are out with our hands, that can't be avoided, but we absolutely need to keep them posted, and everything we can do using our comms to try and promote the 4Gate during that time and before even, because obviously that uncertainty about when's it happening, when's it not happening, is having an impact. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Barry. I mean, I know we know some of the history to this, but for the 4Gate was very much designed to support local independent traders, and variations in trade down there, really does affect small family businesses, and we've really got to help them as much as we can. Jim?
Thanks, Nicky. Just coming back on what you'd said about the £700,000 for SBT, I certainly welcome that. Again, it would alleviate some of the pressures that could have potentially been on us. We already stretched capital investment programme. In relation to paragraph 85, and that's the construction works at Glazing Street, absolutely welcome. And I'm sure the people of Cumnock will welcome the news that this blight in the town centre is finally going to have a completion date. And I think it's worthy of note again that this was an inherited problem that we have as a council, but one which has been time consuming to get to the final end date. But I'm sure the people of Cumnock will certainly appreciate it once that is completed, and also with additional parking spaces that will be created after the back of that should ease some of the pressure in town centre parking as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree, 100% there, Jim. Okay, members, no other comments? Was there any caveats to add to the recommendations? No. So can we agree the recommendations slide down? Okay, thanks for that. And we now go to our next paper. That is the end of the items, Christy. We've got one or two education folk still with us. We'll give you a minute to leave. Okay, and going to item 5, which is proposed East Ayrshire Council response to Scottish Government planning consultations, development plan, amendment regulations, master plan and consent area regulations, and investing in planning, brackets resourcing. You always have the best titles at planning, so you do. Cam.
Thanks, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present to Cabinet 3 responses to Scottish Government consultations and to seek authority to submit these to the Government. The Development Plan Amendment Regulations consultation covers proposals for regulations on procedures to amend the National Planning Framework and local development plans at intervals and when a full review rather than a partial review would be required. And a proposed response to the consultation is set out in Appendix 1. In general terms, we think the proposals are reasonable in terms of process and levels of engagement expected. In terms of the master plan consent areas, planning authorities have powers to prepare master plan consent area schemes which preemptively give consent for a range of development types within a designated master plan area. And that would mean you could bring forward development without the need to apply for specified permissions. Our proposed response to that consultation is largely in agreement with the proposed regulations, which leave room for flexibility with regards to what a planning authority may include in a scheme, with further detail to be provided and subsequent guidance from Scottish ministers. Linked to that consultation is a new statutory requirement for us to periodically consider whether we will bring forward a master plan consent areas within the local authority. So whilst the regulations are still subject to consultation, the part of the Act that requires authorities to consider whether it's desirable to make such a scheme for part or parts of their district has already come into force. And by 25th of July this year, we must publish a statement setting out whether we intend or not to take forward a master plan consent area. And as per recommendation 3, at this point in time, we're saying that we do not intend to take that forward. And there's several reasons for taking that position that are outlined within the report. Probably the most critical consultation response we've got before us is the resourcing the planning system one, which is set in the context of trying to reconcile financially challenging times, the national shortage of planners, with the need for an effective planning system that can deliver on national and local priorities. So there are questions in that consultation around options to improve the capacity of the planning system, and these are split into three themes: working smarter, raising resources, and resourcing other parts of the system. and our response to that is in Appendix 4. There are a couple of things in there. Maybe pull out the concept of a planning hub, which would pull together and centralise specialist expertise is put forward. And that's something we think is worthy of exploring further. But at this stage, there are limited details of how it would work or be supported financially. Raising Resources looks at ways to increase income to cover our costs, focusing on annual increases, setting fees locally, and opportunities for discretionary charging. And again, generally, we're supportive of that. There are also the consultation seeks views on introducing fees for services that don't currently command a fee, such as local review body, and for the applications for 50 megawatt threshold for electricity generation. And again, we're broadly supportive of that. We have highlighted in our response that many of the resource issues that we face in planning authorities are due to wider local authority and public sector resource challenges. It's not just planning services that are responsible for a well-functioning planning system. Roads, housing, our greener communities colleagues and our vibrant communities colleagues also contribute to planning, and they are also challenged by the availability of their resources. So the proposals that are set out are considered to be largely positive, and we consider the responses set out in the appendices will provide valuable feedback to the Scottish Government as it seeks to finalise the regulations. Both the Chief Planning Officer and myself sit on Heads of Planning Scotland, and Chief Planning Officer sits on the RTPI as well. So we're liaising with them around about any kind of further detail that we might put in our responses before they're sent off to the Government. But with that, I'll take you back to the recommendations in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Any questions? No. Okay, can we agree recommendations? Oh, Barry, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Dougie, just a quick point. I'm going to punt the profession. You know, absolutely, planning is a career for good. It is disappointing to see the numbers, certainly out of our universities, number of courses been available. I am lucky I managed to do planning as an undergraduate course, but that isn't available to everybody, particularly in the west of Scotland. That has been a real problem. You know, and I think everything we can do and anything that can be done to promote the profession and get people into local government and making a difference is something that I would welcome. So, you know, from the consultation point of view, there's lots of things here, but actually doing more to promote the profession and getting people into the system is certainly one I would support. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. You just reminded me of that one, put way back in the annals of history. But it's good to see that some universities reopen their planning schools, and that's always welcome. Absolutely agree 100%, Barry. Okay, with that, can we agree the recommendations? And that's us. Thank you all for your thank you all for your attention. We've got sounding board.
Yes, please.
12 o'clock, guys. 12 o'clock
I'd
sounding
be
board.
unable to come at 12, I'm afraid. Due to a
Bit
funeral.
late. Could we do 11:45, please?
I can do it, but Jim.
I can do it.
11:45.
Thank you.
Thanks.
On this link, Dougie.
On this line.
Thank you.